The wizard's invisible ledger rules, money, freedom, and the price of everyday life. Preamble. The 1,000 little tolls. The wizard was sitting on the front porch. This was dangerous. Not to anyone else. Mostly to civilization. Because whenever the wizard sat on the front porch long enough without anyone giving him a broken lawnmower, an electronic circuit, a robot, a boat motor, or a leaking pipe to occupy his hands, he began thinking. Shadow was stretched across the porch rail, apparently asleep. The wizard knew better. Cats were always listening. His wife was nearby enjoying the afternoon and had already learned to recognize the particular expression that meant another book was probably about to be born. The wizard looked toward the road. A car passed. And suddenly he thought, the driver probably had a car payment. Insurance. Registration. Fuel. Maintenance. Maybe a parking fee. Maybe a toll. Maybe interest on the loan. Maybe a late charge somewhere. Maybe taxes rolled into 3 things nobody called taxes. Another vehicle passed. The wizard stared after it. Then he looked at the house. Property taxes. Electricity. Water. Gas. Telephone. Internet. Trash collection. Insurance. Mortgage. Repairs. Permits. Zoning. Maybe an HOA. Maybe a special assessment. Maybe a service charge. Maybe a convenience fee for the privilege of paying the service charge. The wizard frowned. Interesting. His wife immediately looked suspicious. What's interesting? I think everything has a toll booth, she laughed. What? The modern world. He began counting on his fingers. You earn money. Some comes out before you receive it. You put what's left in the bank. You spend some. You borrow some. You pay interest on what you borrow. You buy property. You continue paying for owning it. You drive somewhere. You pay to operate the automobile. You communicate. You pay for the connection. You purchase a ticket. Sometimes another fee appears. You miss something. Late fee. You violate something. Fine. You need permission. Application fee. You don't understand the permission. Consulting fee. You contest the permission. Attorney. His wife was laughing now. The wizard continued. You win the argument. Celebration fee. There is no celebration fee. Give them time. Shadow opened one eye. The wizard pointed at her. Cat license. Shadow immediately closed her eye. She refuses to participate in the monetary system. She may be the smartest one here, his wife said. The wizard leaned back. Perhaps none of these things alone represented oppression. Roads cost money. Water systems cost money. Courts cost money. Electric grids require maintenance. Banks take risks when they lend. Insurance companies pool risks. Governments need revenue. Communities make zoning rules partly because people generally do not want the neighbor opening a dynamite factory beside the swing set. Rules can protect people. Contracts can create trust. Taxes can finance common infrastructure. Regulations can prevent genuine harm. But the wizard wondered about something else. What happens when all of them accumulate? One rule. One bill. One payment. One permit. 1 percentage point of interest. One penalty. One subscription. One insurance premium. One assessment. One unexpected repair. One missed paycheck. None necessarily catastrophic. Together? That could become something entirely different. 1,000 little tolls. The wizard pulled out his notebook. He wrote, **, the invisible ledger. His wife looked over his shoulder. What's that? The accounting book nobody receives. He drew 2 columns. On the left, * money coming in. On the right, * everything waiting for it. He stared at the second column. It was considerably longer. Chapter 1. Who owns Tuesday? Tuesday morning arrived promptly at 7 o'clock. The wizard suspected it had been sent by a collection agency. His alarm clock rang. He opened one eye. Already, Shadow was sitting on his chest. Apparently the cat represented the enforcement division. The wizard got up. Before his feet reached the floor, civilization was waiting. The phone contained notifications. A utility reminder. An insurance message. An advertisement for something he had apparently desperately needed without knowing it existed. A bank notification. 3 emails. A software renewal. And something announcing, * your free trial is ending. The wizard smiled. There was one of his favorite words. Free. Free was frequently the opening ceremony for paying later. He walked toward the kitchen. Coffee. At least coffee remained simple. Water. Coffee. Electricity. Wait. Water bill. Electric bill. Coffee price. Sales tax. Coffee maker. Filters. Cream. Perhaps coffee wasn't simple either. He poured a cup anyway. Some economic systems were worth supporting. The invisible hand meets the invisible invoice. The wizard remembered Adam Smith and the famous metaphor of the invisible hand. Markets could coordinate millions of independent decisions without one person standing above society directing every loaf of bread, hammer, shoe, automobile, or cup of coffee. That was extraordinary. But centuries later, the wizard wondered whether another invisible mechanism had grown alongside it. The * invisible invoice. Nobody had designed one single bill called * fee for existing this month. Instead, modern life delivered it in pieces. Housing. Transportation. Communication. Insurance. Debt service. Utilities. Taxes. Licenses. Subscriptions. Repairs. Medical expenses. Education. Food. Everything had its legitimate reasons. But the checking account did not care about the philosophical justification. Money leaving was still money leaving. The wizard wrote, *I, H. Invisible hand then. *I. Invisible invoice. Homer Simpson wandered onto the porch. Do I owe anything? Probably. For what? We haven't invented it yet. Dough. ###. Ownership isn't always the same as freedom. The wizard looked toward the houses along the road. People often spoke proudly about owning a home. And rightly so. A house could provide stability, security, equity, a garden, a workshop, a place where grandchildren could leave fingerprints on freshly painted walls approximately 4 minutes after the paint dried. But ownership came with an interesting footnote. Even after the mortgage disappeared, other obligations could remain. Property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, association charges in some neighborhoods, compliance with local rules. The wizard considered this neither sinister nor surprising. A community had expenses. But it raised an interesting philosophical question. Asterisk, what does ownership actually mean? Perhaps ownership did not mean freedom from obligations. Perhaps it meant possession of an asset accompanied by responsibility for it. That was less romantic, but probably more accurate. The wizard wrote, asterisk own equals opportunity with needs. Homer looked at it. That's terrible. I know. Keep it. Absolutely. The $9.99 civilization. The wizard picked up his telephone. Modern civilization had discovered an ingenious number. $9.99. Not $10. Never $10. 10 sounded like money. $9.99 sounded almost free. Streaming service, $9.99. Cloud storage, $9.99. Premium application, $9.99. Membership, $9.99. Extra service, $9.99. Protection plan, $9.99. Eventually the wizard suspected somebody would introduce asterisk premium breathing, $9.99 per month. Cancel anytime. Homer looked alarmed. Is there an ad-supported version? Probably. The wizard laughed. The humor concealed an important principle. Small recurring expenses become large when multiplied. $10 here. 20 there. 40 somewhere else. Each harmless individually. Together they could quietly consume hundreds of dollars every month. Financial captivity rarely arrived wearing chains. Sometimes it arrived wearing automatic billing. Debt. A tool with two handles. The wizard disliked simplistic arguments about debt. Debt was not automatically evil. A sensible mortgage could help a family acquire a home decades before they could purchase one with cash. A business loan could finance productive equipment. Credit could bridge timing gaps. Capital could turn an idea into a factory. But debt always had another participant. Time. Borrow $100 today and repayment claims part of tomorrow. Borrow enough, and years of tomorrows can already have appointments. The wizard wrote, asterisk debt equals dollars. Enter before tomorrow asterisk. That's actually pretty good, said his wife. I occasionally get lucky. The trouble was not necessarily borrowing. The trouble came when borrowing purchased yesterday faster than tomorrow could pay for it. Credit cards were particularly fascinating. Swipe. Tap. Click. Nothing seemed to leave your pocket. Until the statement arrived. Then mathematics entered wearing work boots. Principal. APR. Minimum payment. Interest. Late fee. Penalty. The wizard imagined compound interest sitting quietly in the corner eating peanuts. It never looked particularly threatening. But it never stopped chewing. The rulebook nobody has read. Then there were regulations. The wizard believed rules were among humanity's strangest inventions. Most originated because something had happened. Somebody built something dangerous. Somebody cheated somebody. Somebody polluted something. Somebody parked 12 abandoned automobiles in the front yard. Somebody opened a nightclub beside a monastery. Eventually someone said, "We need a rule." Then another unusual thing happened. Another rule. And another. Decades passed. Nobody remembered precisely why paragraph 17, c. 4e, existed. But there it was. This didn't mean regulations were useless. Some protected health, property, safety, consumers, workers, neighbors, the environment, markets. But complicated systems created another kind of inequality. Not simply inequality of money. Asterisk inequality of navigation. The wealthy could hire lawyers, accountants, consultants, lobbyists, permit specialists, tax professionals, compliance officers. A struggling person might have, Tuesday afternoon, a smartphone with 14% battery, and a clerk telling them they downloaded the wrong form. That interested the wizard enormously. Maybe one important form of modern power was simply knowing how the system worked. ### The alphabet of authority. The wizard began writing acronyms. IRS, WA, APR, DMV, FICO, CPI, GDP, ZBA, LLC, CEO, CPA, HUD, FTC, CFPB, EPA, OSHA. The board started looking suspiciously like the old Tower of Babel. Homer stared at it. I recognize DMV. Everyone recognizes DMV. What do the others mean, exactly? The wizard smiled. There was the connection to the earlier chronicles. Language created power. If you understood the acronym, you were inside the room. If you didn't, somebody might make a decision about your property, money, employment, taxes, business, or future while speaking a language you barely understood. The wizard circled the entire list. Translation. His wife looked over. Translation, that's one kind of freedom. Know what the words mean. Know what you're signing. Know what interest means. Know the difference between a fee and a tax. Know what jurisdiction you're dealing with. Know the appeal process. Know the deadline. Know your rights. Know your obligations. Ask questions. Get copies. Read before signing. Keep records. Freedom sometimes looked remarkably like a filing cabinet. ###. The powerful and the powerless. The wizard's thoughts returned to wealth. A mansion. A yacht. A private airplane. An expensive automobile. A perfectly tailored suit. A fine wristwatch. Each could represent achievement. Years of work. Investment. Risk. Inheritance. Luck. Or some combination of all five. But none proved wisdom. None proved kindness. None proved corruption either. The wizard wanted to be careful about that. It was easy to turn wealthy people into villains merely because they were wealthy. It was equally easy to assume wealth proved superior intelligence or moral virtue. Both were shortcuts. The wizard had already learned what shortcuts did to human understanding. A person sleeping in an automobile was still a person. A billionaire stepping from a jet was still a person. Both had stories. Both had fears. Both could act generously. Both could act selfishly. Money magnified choices. It didn't automatically determine them. Yet wealth undeniably changed one's available options. A $1,000 emergency meant something different to someone with $400 in savings than to someone with $4 million. That was not ideology. That was arithmetic. ###. The missing middle. People frequently said, the middle class is disappearing. The wizard wanted to investigate that carefully rather than merely repeat it. Was it disappearing? Shrinking? Changing? Moving geographically? Being squeezed by housing? Being transformed by education and technology? Were some families doing better while others slipped backward? Were assets rising faster than wages? What role did debt play? Healthcare? Housing scarcity? Taxes? Automation? Globalization? Interest rates? Family structure? The wizard didn't yet know all the answers. Excellent. That meant there was a book to write. Perhaps several. The wizard's first rule of financial freedom. The wizard drew a large box around 3 words. *, reduce dependence gradually. His wife nodded. That sounds more sensible than running away from civilization. Precisely. True independence did not require moving into a cave and communicating through smoke signals. It might begin much more simply. Repair instead of replace. Buy used when appropriate. Learn practical skills. Cook. Grow something. Share tools. Avoid unnecessary high-interest debt. Build emergency savings. Own productive equipment. Develop several useful skills. Create more than one source of income when realistically possible. Understand contracts. Challenge incorrect charges through lawful procedures. Know local rules before beginning expensive work. Maintain things before they break. Trade skills with neighbors. Buy based on utility instead of status. Use technology as a tool rather than allowing subscriptions to become invisible landlords. The wizard smiled. Perhaps freedom isn't having no obligations. Perhaps freedom is increasing the number of choices available when obligations arrive. His wife smiled. That's better. Wealth of another kind. Shadow jumped onto the porch table. She owned virtually nothing. No bank account. No real estate. No automobile. No retirement portfolio. No credit score. No shoes. Yet she appeared remarkably content. The wizard scratched her head. I'm not proposing feline economics. His wife laughed. Good. But Shadow reminds us of something. There were forms of wealth that never appeared on a balance sheet. Health. Friendship. Knowledge. Practical skills. Trust. Reputation. A good marriage. Neighbors who helped one another. A workshop. A garden. Time. A peaceful morning. The ability to fix something. The ability to teach something. The ability to comfort someone. The ability to laugh when the refrigerator breaks 30 minutes after the washing machine. Those assets could not eliminate financial problems. But they could make people remarkably resilient. Perhaps the greatest mistake was believing wealth existed only as money. A different kind of revolution. The wizard closed the notebook. He wasn't interested in overthrowing civilization. Civilization had indoor plumbing. He was quite fond of that. He didn't want a world without laws. He wanted laws understandable enough for ordinary people to navigate. He didn't want a world without banks. He wanted people knowledgeable enough to understand what borrowing really cost. He didn't want businesses to stop earning profits. He wanted customers to know what they were actually paying. He didn't oppose wealth. He opposed confusing wealth with human worth. He didn't oppose government. He opposed unnecessary complexity wherever it could reasonably be simplified. He didn't oppose markets. He wanted people to understand the market well enough to avoid becoming merely another product inside it. And most importantly, he didn't want people to become so obsessed with escaping financial systems that they forgot why they wanted freedom in the first place. Freedom to live. Freedom to create. Freedom to love. Freedom to help. Freedom to explore. Freedom to sit on the porch occasionally and do absolutely nothing productive. The wizard smiled. Perhaps that was economic freedom's most radical expression. An afternoon nobody had purchased. Homer looked up. So what's the plan? The wizard opened a fresh notebook. We investigate everything. Everything. Taxes. Fees. Fines. Debt. Credit. Mortgages. Property ownership. Rent. Utilities. HOAs. Zoning. Insurance. Employment. Wages. Interest. Banking. Collections. Courts. Probation costs. Licensing. Business permits. Consumer protection. Subscriptions. Transportation. Housing. Education. Healthcare. Retirement. Inflation. Investing. Entrepreneurship. Barter. Repair. Reuse. Community cooperation. Technology. Automation. And the ancient human question underneath all of them. Asterisk, how much of my life do I actually control? Homer stared at the list. That's going to be a big book. The wizard smiled. No, it's going to be several. Shadow jumped into his lap. The wizard looked down. And apparently we already have an editor. The evening sun dropped toward the trees. Cars continued passing. Bills continued arriving. Markets continued rising and falling. Governments continued governing. Businesses continued selling. Banks continued lending. Workers continued working. Inventors continued inventing. And ordinary people everywhere continued performing the remarkable daily mathematics of turning limited resources into lives worth living. The wizard picked up his coffee. This isn't going to be a book about escaping society. His wife looked over. What is it about? He smiled. Learning enough about the machinery of society that it doesn't quietly operate us. He raised his cup toward the road. And then using whatever freedom we gain. Not merely to accumulate more, but to live better and help somebody else do the same. Shadow purred. Homer reached for the last donut. His wife smiled. And somewhere, perhaps, the invisible hand quietly reached for the bill. The wizard laughed. Not today. And thus began the wizard's invisible ledger an investigation into the 1,000 little rules, charges, agreements, assumptions, incentives, institutions, habits, and choices that shape everyday economic life. Not a search for villains. A search for understanding. Because before anyone can find a lawful path through the maze, it helps tremendously to know who built the walls, why they were built, which ones protect us, which ones deserve reform, and which doors have been standing unlocked all along. God bless. Global Robotics Corporation. Robert Colee.